everybody, and welcome. How are you doing tonight?
Good.
Okay, just
Great.
shake your head. You know what I mean? We do have a rule. If you, I think it's the Harvey rule. If you're over 100, you're allowed to use your microphone. If not, you can't. When he was on, he just popped right in. He was over 100. We said, whatever you want, right? We're glad you can join us as usual, as Arnie and I continue to welcome amazing guests for this Maccabi USA Sports Show. And in for a treat tonight. Of course, every time you join us, you're in for a treat. But having the opportunity to meet all of these great talents, what a treat for us. And tonight we continue to bat 1,000. Arnie, I really do like our batting average. Hey, Joy. She just popped on. I'm so happy. Now, interestingly enough, batting 1,000, speaking of which, Michael Tollin, our guest tonight, began his career being a true baseball fanatic, a Philly fanatic. And I know there's a bunch of them on already tonight. Michael will be right back to you in a second because I just think worthy of mentions is that the Masters is here. Golf fans, anybody?
Yeah.
Right? Big time. Really remarkable. I mean, is anyone else a bit out of sorts besides me? Come on, tell the truth. Right? We have a general COVID situation. We have an election that's resolving, we think. And then Augusta is in November. And I have to say, the out of sync sports schedule has been really disconcerting. And if you look at the ratings, it's not just me, it's all of us. But I have a feeling that Augusta, Bruce Apple, is really going to draw a big crowd. I know the players, because I'm in touch with some of them, are really focused. And I'm just curious, does anybody have any favorites? Anyone want to pick a winner?
Koepka.
Koepka is not a bad pick. Obviously, Brandon, what's his name? Brandon, right? He's pretty hot, but I'm going to just tell you, you can always count on me. I am always picking Phil Mickelson. Love him, Phil forever, and he loves Augusta, and I love him. So you'll know where I'll be this weekend, watching and cheering for Phil Mickelson.
I'm going with the Jewish golfer. There's a Jewish golfer in the tournament.
Yeah, Max
Homa. There we go. Yeah. Got full for him.
That's Barry, one of our basketball coach's cousins, Max, and we'll get him on the show at some point, but not this week. He's a little busy. But anyway, I think, you know, golf usually has great stories during the Masters, and that's a great way to welcome Michael Tollin, who is a phenomenal storyteller. His stories have always come around as, I think, being a young Jewish boy loving sports. He was inducted into the Philadelphia Jewish Sports Hall of Fame, not because of how he played baseball, but actually how he told stories about baseball and lots of different sports. I met him because there was a really popular show a long time ago called The Baseball Bunch, and Michael was the producer of that show. He later went on, and I remember him talking about this because he had this great idea. At the time, there was NBA entertainment, and there was NFL films, and Michael's like, there's a new league called the USFL. Anybody remember the USFL? Well, Michael and his friend Gary created the USFL. What did you call it? USFL Films? What did you call it, Michael?
No, we were Halcyon Days Productions.
Oh, I remember that too. I couldn't even spell it. Halcyon Days, but you did the USFL. And you, right? Bert, when he passed away too, Bert and Donald Trump. And we'll talk about all of this. But the idea is that you saw what NBA did, the NFL did, and you were like, hey, I'm going to do this for the USFL. And that was a really big deal. I remember you're in the basement production studio.
Somebody said it was small potatoes, Donna, so I don't know if it was such
it was not small. It was big time. It was really, did I say that? No, it was big time.
Somebody else is now about to lose his job on January 20th, that guy.
Oh, well, you know what? That's because he wanted to be in the NFL. And I think we should tell everybody why he dissed the NFL. It had nothing to do with the players on their knees. It's because he was so heartbroken that the NFL would not take him.
Right.
Somehow Herschel Walker still stayed with him. But moving right along, Michael then moved to California. He became a Hollywood sensation. He created his own company called Tollin Robbins Productions. And he started producing those kind of beautiful, heartfelt, feel-good stories that we all like to watch around sports. Anybody see Varsity Blues? Or Coach Carter? Right? Anybody of those? And one of my friends, this wasn't sports, but I forgot Michael did this. I didn't remember. The Zookeeper's Wife, another great film. He did a lot of TV series, including Arliss, which was, I think, one of the great HBO series, starring our friend Robert. Sin City Saints, I'm with her, and it goes on and on and on. Then Michael found a different partner. This time it was only Peter Gruber. He's now one of the owners of the Warriors, among things. And they created Mandalay Sports Media, which has become a really huge force in the sports production, media, storytelling business. And I think probably the most famous, although you guys have done a lot, and we'll talk about that, but one of the most famous and the most incredibly successful was the 10-part documentary series for Netflix. Groundbreaking. The fact that Michael was the one who got Michael Jordan to say hello is a story you must hear, called The Last Dance. So I have to tell you, in addition to this, Michael did want me to mention that Philanthropy is really part and parcel of who he is today. It means a lot to him. And he's a founding board member of Common Sense Media and Children Now, two things that focus on kids and media. Michael, we really need your attention on social media because it's killing us. He sits on the board of the Hank Aaron Chasing the Dream Foundation, the founder of PACE, which identifies and devotes resources to underserved children and families, and co-founded the first annual World Adoption Day in 2014. It is truly a style. We already have questions, by the way. People have already submitted questions to you. So Great. It is indeed a joy to welcome the acclaimed, kind, talented, genius, Michael Tollin.
Yikes. Wait, I'm looking over my shoulder. Come on, Donna.
You want more? I can give you more.
Donna and I
we have a little tradition, Michael, because I do this part and then Arnie always gets the first question. So Arnie?
I'll kick it off. What an honor, Michael. Welcome to the Maccabi Sports Show. It's wonderful to have you. We'll try to cover as much ground as we can because there's a lot of ground to cover with your career. It's an amazing career. But we might as well start at kind of the beginning. You know, this nice Jewish kid from Philadelphia, grew up in Haverford and went out west to Stanford. And you were what, play-by-play for the Cardinal and also print, right?
We weren't very good, but that's, you know, my Philly heritage. So when I got to Stanford and we were losing teams, I fit right in. I did a column in Stanford Daily calling for the head football coach, Jack Christensen, to be fired. Wasn't that welcome in the locker room that next week, but he got fired. Bill Walsh came. That was a pretty good upgrade for the Stanford team. And they got good after I left and then led to John Elway and then the play, remember the trombone player and the crazy cow return. But yeah, I did a little Stanford Daily and I did KZSU broadcasting, which was about as much fun as you ever get to have. You just like those guys who get paid to do play-by-play, they're stealing money. Anyway, there was a family that was kind of like adjacent to our family growing up in Havertown, Pennsylvania, a suburb of Philly. And our fathers were best friends, mothers were best friends. They had baby boys together and then a second baby boy, that was me, and then little girls. And so we were all best friends. My best friend's father, who was my father's best friend, started a show called Greatest Sports Legends. And he was notoriously cheap. And so I was a perfect target. I was happy to take his $130 a week plus gas, which was important since I had an Oldsmobile that got about 8 miles a gallon. It worked out to about 160 gross. I was doing 80 hours a week. I was making $2 an hour, happy as a clam. But it's kind of amazing because Donna was mentioning the Michael Jordan thing. God, can I really count this high? 42 years ago, 1978, I got out of Stanford and I was 3 days later in the Philadelphia library researching the legend of Ted Williams. Then it was Will Chamberlain, then it was Pete Rose, and on and on and on. And in 2020, I'm kind of still doing the same thing, but like getting away with it. I don't know if you feel the same way, Donna, but like to just getting away with it for as long as we have and just keep doing it. It's like Hank Aaron taught me better to be the tortoise than the hare.
Oh, I like that. I have a couple of good stories for you, actually, we could talk about. And I think by the end of this show, you're not going to be able to help the desire. You're going to have to want to do some kind of meaningful story about the Maccabi movement.
Sounds great.
Right? I mean, listen, think about it. Jewish athletes. How could you go wrong? Some
of the people on here know John Weinbach. I've already seen some texts. Do you know John, Donna, or
I do now. Know? Hi, John.
Yes. So he's all over me 24/7 about. So he's already lobbying. So you got sort of a mole inside Mandalay.
I love it. We love being inside of Mandalay. All right. So listen, you love baseball. You get to do the stories. You're paying bupkis. By the way, all of us who were in production when we were kids got paid nothing, but we loved it so much. I tell the Halcyon Day story. This USFL Donald Trump thing is just beyond the pale.
We just had a little earthquake here. Not really, but sort of. Sorry.
Earthquake?
Just trying to it's kind of an amateur hour here. Give me half a second, okay? My dog is.
You're a director. Hello. You can't even get your Zoom screen right.
What was the question?
You have to send your Emmy back. Sorry. No, tell us all about Halcyon Days. Tell us about the whole USFL thing and the guy who told you that your company was small potatoes.
Well, so we were, as Donna said, we were kind of the NFL films of this fledgling spring football league, the USFL. And we were kids. Let's do the math. We were 27. Gary Cohen, who was a Stanford, he was one of the guys that I did play-by-play with at Stanford. And we had it grown up. We enlisted an older guy who knew how to sell and knew how to do the diplomacy thing. We were just in the cutting room and on the field. It was so great. When you're faking your way through it and you don't really know if anybody's going to catch on and discover you, and you're just staying one step ahead. We weren't making any money. We were trying to sell advertising for these USFL games. People were actually watching, but they couldn't really monetize it. So they would give us barter. So we would get endless miles on TWA Airlines. A lot of people here don't even know what that is, right? And so we would fly to Amsterdam for the weekend, but we couldn't afford to do anything once we got there. Anyway, we're doing these shows, and we actually got an Emmy for This Is the USFL, the weekly show. We really took it very seriously, and we were having a ball. And then in the second year, the Oklahoma oil baron, Walter Duncan, decided to sell the New Jersey Generals to this upstart real estate maverick who built a building. I'd rather not say his name, but his building was on the Tiffany corner on Fifth Avenue. And he plastered his name on the front of his building and every other building that he could. And it was very clear that he was buying a team to just get in the headlines. As my friend Charlie Steiner always says, he was trying to get from the back pages of the Post and the Daily News to the front pages, but it was really hard for him to do that. And as Donna said earlier, the big guys didn't want him in the NFL. And he came into the league and said, in answer to why he joined the Spring Football League, I don't really know, if God wanted football to be played in the spring, he wouldn't have invented baseball. So dude, why are you crashing our party? We'll show you the door. Anyway, he couldn't get in the front door. And so he decided to sue and try to get into the back door by accusing the NFL of antitrust violation. And there was a lawsuit, and the league basically was falling apart. We made a film that originally was called Who Killed the USFL? And all signs were pointing to the corner of Fifth Avenue and 57th Street. And I couldn't get him to talk to me about it because, you see a film called Who Killed the USFL? He knows what it's about. So we planted a story in the Sports Business Journal, this new fledgling documentary series on ESPN, and what are some of the titles? And there's going to be one about Wayne Gretzky, and there's going to be one about Darryl and Doc, and there's going to be one about the University of Miami football team, and then there's going to be one about this football league that led to its demise after 3 years. And I sort of got the writer to suggest that maybe it was going to point to this real estate guy. And damn if the phone didn't ring the next day after refusing to take my call and avoiding the interview request for 3 months. All of a sudden, he saw that the article was going to be about him. And so his assistant said, he will see you now. So we scheduled an interview. Long story longer, I had all that was left from the lawsuit, which the USFL won the lawsuit, but the judge said that they actually led to their own demise. And so he gave them a $1 settlement. And because it was an antitrust suit, it was treble damages. So it was a $3 settlement, and it was in a vault, and it was collecting interest. And so there was a check for $3.76 sitting in a vault. I made a big show of going to the vault in Memphis, taking it out, bringing it up to New York. And when I was done with all the questions that I needed, and I felt like, okay, it's in the can, it's all the bonus round now, I pulled out the check and I said, well, he who will not be named, this is all that's left of our league. Have you ever seen this check before? That was it for him. So me and Leslie Stahl have something in common. He got up, he walked out, he very sort of disparagingly patted me on the shoulder and said, it was small potatoes. He walks out, I turn to the camera and go, small potatoes, that's all we ever were, guys, small potatoes. And that became the name of the film, which is probably my proudest moment in showbiz, is having him walk out on me right on camera with 3 cameras blaring away. So there's been a lot of print, there's been a lot of discussion. I've done a lot of interviews. Clearly he was petulant then and petulant now. People say, what did you learn about him that would suggest what kind of president he was going to become? I said, he's exactly the same way he is now. Back then, he cried when he didn't get his way. he threw temper tantrums. It was only about himself. He couldn't see beyond, beyond the hair. I did get a bird's eye view because he was sitting in his chair, and my friends all wanted to know, just see if you can find out what's going on with that hair. So I did like a 360 on top of the dome. It's real. It's just torture. I think the over-under and how much time he spends in the morning is probably about 30 minutes getting that hair to stay in place. Anyway, the league ended. We moved on. I moved to California. I got married. As Donna said, I started with Brian Robbins, a production company called Tollin Robbins, and we just kept telling stories.
Yeah, great stories.
Donna, only on our sports show are you going to learn about Donald, we won't say his name, Donald's hair back 40 years ago. Only on the Maccabi Sports Show can you get that. So that's great. I know baseball was one of your loves. So before you moved to California, you were involved with MLB Productions and did the baseball a bunch. But you wrote the official World Series film that involved Vin Scully. Tell us about that. And also, what was it like? Because the year you did that, 1980, was a special year for Philly fans, obviously, because of the World Series championship. That had to be pretty special.
Well, the Phillies were founded in 1883. So you can do the math. 1980 was their 97th year, and they were still 0 for life. I always look at fans who've never won a championship as 0 for life. So when the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2018, I mean, the cathartic, Chuck Brodsky and many other people on the Zoom can speak to that. It is truly life-changing. I mean, it's just a game, right? It's just a team, but it can completely changed our self-image. They're like no longer were we, on the scrap heap of life. We were in the win column. The difference between 0 and 1 is everything. After that, Brady was going for his 6th or whatever. But so back in 1980, we were 0 for life. And I was in my rookie year working for Major League Baseball. And I somehow managed to finagle a job as the writer, as you said, of the World Series film, which really meant being a producer. It meant flying on the planes with the teams. It meant being in the dugouts. It was, truly the e-ticket. Does anybody even know what the e-ticket is anymore? It used to be in Disneyland. That was the special ticket that could get you to the front of the line. I don't think they do that anymore. Anyway, so yeah, here I am, 24 years old. My dad's in the stands at Veterans Stadium, just bawling because he's never seen a winner. And now his son's on the field interviewing Mike Schmidt and Steve Carlton. There's a play in the top of the 9th of Game 6 with the Phillies trying to get the last 3 outs, and Tug McGraw's on the mound. And there's a foul ball, and it goes off Bob Boone's glove near the first base dugout. And Pete Rose grabs it as it bounces off his mitt and catches it. I was as close to Pete Rose. I had to resist doing a Bartman. I could have gone out and caught the ball and ruined the whole thing, but I was that close to it. It was so exhilarating to be there. And then I'm writing the script and they tell me, oh, by the way, Vin Scully's going to narrate it. That's not bad for, a rookie debut to have Vin Scully knock this out. Now, I had been doing Greatest Sports Legends, as I said, in Philly, and I had John Facenda, among others, narrating some of my scripts. Now, people who don't know John Facenda, he was kind of like our own Walter Cronkite, right? I mean, he was the authority. Whatever John Facenda said in Philly was, that was the truth. And in his spare time, he would do these sports broadcasts. So I got very, very lucky to rub elbows with some of those guys early in my career.
That's awesome. So I saw David Landesman's name, but I didn't see his face. But he sent in a question. Landesberg. Hey, Dave, this is for you, from him, because we're talking about the Phillies. He says, as a Phillies guy, has Mike given any consideration to exploring the supposed link between glioblastoma, which is brain cancer, and numerous ball players, including 8 Phillies and Royals, half of whom were in the 1980 World Series? I guess it seems like an engrossing story. And there are other players, I guess, have also succumbed to this particular type of cancer. So I guess, have you heard of any kind of link between glioblastoma and baseball?
I heard just about as much as you've said and no more. I have not dug into it. You know, the Phillies for many years designated ALS as their charity of choice, which is, I've had people in my life subjected to it, and I've helped raise money through the years, and it's really been a great cause. Dave Montgomery, I would be remiss not to mention him. He was the longtime managing general partner of the Phillies. He presided over the team when they won in 2008, and he led the charitable efforts. One of the all-time great guys. He's actually going to be honored in Cooperstown next summer. He gets the Buck O'Neill Award, which we're all going to be very excited to be there for. But no, I haven't really dug into that. Sounds interesting, sounds juicy and a little scary.
Yeah. We also have somebody else on here who raises money and awareness for ALS, Evan Yogelwell. He comes every time we have a show, and we're so appreciative to him.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to actually go to another question that came from one of our people participating. This is from Jerry Knightlick. I'm not sure if Jerry's on tonight.
Yeah, he is. He's waiting.
Is he? Oh, okay. Well, Jerry sent this in advance. So Jerry heard that ESPN signed an agreement with one of the principals to do a full film on the Boston College point shaving scandal. Wondering, Michael, if you might be involved, and if so, from what perspective?
I'm not. Yeah, that's one of those that's kicking around forever, and sooner or later somebody's going to find, you know, somebody who's going to tell stories that nobody knows before. The trick to 30 for 30 is, I think, the secret sauce is having a title, a subject matter, a topic, a personality that you think you know about. You're intrigued and interested and familiar enough that you want to watch the show, but you're going to learn things you had no idea about. Like Bo Jackson was one of the great ones. Everybody knew Bo from the commercials, but I don't think people really knew, you know, some of the story. Like Brian Bosworth, another guy. Yeah, we remember. He was a great linebacker. He did a lot of steroids. But I mean, to see him crying with his kid and going through the archives of his old memorabilia, I love the ones that really reveal, you know, not necessarily a darker side, but an unknown side where somebody will really explore their humanity. It's about 10 years now. I was asked to be part of 30 for 30 at the onset in like 2009 and 2010. It was Bill Simmons and Connor Shell, and they asked me to be a part of it because I was kind of like a sports guy, but I had moved to Hollywood and was doing mainstream entertainment. And they were going to try to do documentaries with world-class filmmakers. And my job was to attract some of these guys like John Singleton and Pete Berg and Ron Shelton and Frank Marshall and on and on and on. And these guys were, you know, world-class feature filmmakers doing scripted movies, but they all had a sports story in their back pocket. Like Barry Levinson, who's a Baltimore guy, told this great story about when the owner of the Colts moved the Colts out of Baltimore under the cover of darkness. I mean, literally brought the moving vans in, you know, in the middle of the night because he didn't want anybody to know and he was keeping it from the press. People woke up the next morning and the Colts had moved to Indianapolis. You know, can you imagine? Like, I always thought, like, if that had happened to the Eagles. But so the morning, the story gets out and everybody's realizing it, the Colts are gone. But the guys in the Baltimore Colts marching band realized that their uniforms were at the cleaners. And so they didn't go to Indianapolis with everybody else's. And so they still were going to be the Baltimore Colts marching band, even without the Colts in Baltimore. And Barry told a whole hour documentary about the Baltimore Colts, you know, after the fact. It was genius. So those kind of stories where, you know, you take a little slice of life and expand it into something that's really compelling. So, you know, now Bill left and now he's doing The Ringer, and Connor Shell just left this weekend. But, you know, 30 for 30 has really turned into a juggernaut. I think people will now talk about documentaries that they may have seen on HBO or Netflix or somewhere else, and they'll just call them 30 for 30s. It's sort of like the generic term for a sports doc.
It is, and it's true. And listen, you're coming. Oh, that's right. I want to say this before we talk about the Bulls, but Shifty, that's exactly what I was like thinking about. Barry Levinson did Diner.
Yes.
Right. And there was that whole through story that if the girlfriend had to know sports, right? She was tested in order to pass muster. Do you remember that?
Yes. Okay. So wait, I got to do this. Okay. I already showed my technical incompetence, but I'm going to switch the camera to the other wall. Okay. Let's see if I can do this.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic, Michael.
That is a scene from Diner that I had transcribed and turned into like a graphic thing, and it's hanging on my wall. I won't do it. I won't read it for you, but it's pretty cool. So yeah, Diner's like my favorite movie.
Your girlfriend has to answer the football questions?
It's kind of my favorite movie. It's pretty great. It's not that scene, no. It's a scene in the diner where they're arguing about who's going to eat the roast beef sandwich.
Okay. All right. Seth Goldberg. I think Seth Goldberg's leading off this transition for us, but he's a huge Chicago Bulls fan. I'm sure there's many of them here. And he is from Chicago, and I know that Roy is as well. He never knew what was going on with the behind the scenes with the Bulls. What was it like doing that documentary on The Last Dance? And in telling the story, please tell. A lot of people knew that this footage exists. Nobody could get Michael to say yes. For how many years?
18.
Okay, right. So everybody knew that this footage, I know Seth, you didn't, but those in the industry knew that this footage existed. Michael did not want to have his story told. So this is a great story.
Well, so in 97, the Bulls had won 5 titles. In the last 7 years, of course, Michael went to play baseball. His father died. We know all the stories about gambling and taking a hiatus and going off to play minor league ball in Birmingham with Terry Francona. Anyway, he comes back and they've now won their 5th. And a guy you might know named Adam Silver, back then he was the president of NBA Entertainment. And a guy named Andy Thompson, you might also know as Michael Thompson's brother and Klay Thompson's uncle. Andy was a producer for NBA Entertainment. He went to his boss, Adam Silver, and he said, Adam, we need to document this year. Whether they win or lose, it's going to be The Last Dance. As we saw in the documentary, Phil Jackson, who was the coach, and Jerry Krause, who was the general manager, were at it like cats and dogs. Krause famously said to Phil, you could go, sorry, Ollie, my lab, is very excited. He wants to be part of the Zoom. So I'm just trying to keep him quiet. Jerry Krause says, you can go 82-0 and you're still going to be fired. This is your last year. Something about like, Jerry didn't invite Phil to his daughter's wedding. I mean, it was war and it was going to be over. And so Adam went to Jerry's Reinsdorf, the owner, Krause, the general manager, Jackson, the coach, and said, if you let us follow the team, we will keep it under wraps. We won't do anything with it. And they all said, well, you got to go to Michael because Michael is the name above the title. He is that global icon who is bigger than the team, bigger than the league, really. And Adam went to Michael and said the same thing. We won't do anything with the footage unless and until you agree on a distribution plan. And if you never do, you'll just have the greatest home movie collection in the history of sports. So that's what it was. Year after year, the NBA would go to him. Okay, Michael, this is the year. He goes back to play with Washington. Okay, we'll put it on hold. He's done playing with Washington. Okay, you're really retired now. Let's do it. Nah. Michael goes to Charlotte. He's now an owner. Okay, let's do it. Nah. The NBA was so determined to make it that they spent, I don't know, $1 million to actually make the film. They got John Cusack to narrate it. It was just like a demo for an audience of one. Michael watched it and said, nah. So it just wasn't happening. Fast forward to 2016. Now we're 18 years after they, of course, won their 6th title in 98. And the landscape was shifting. This was not like any genius idea of mine. It was just being aware that all of a sudden documentaries, which were always kind of challenged and not very commercial, and you'd always hear less is more, like don't make it too long because people get bored. All of a sudden, there was The Jinx on HBO. There was How to Make a Murderer on Netflix. And there was OJ Made in America on ESPN. These were 6, 8, and 10-hour series. And I realized there was this seismic shift, and documentaries were becoming big events, and they were becoming commercial, and they were actually getting giant license fees. And this was going to go from being a 1-hour, tree falling in the forest because nobody's going to ever see it, to a giant event. Now, I didn't anticipate a pandemic and a complete absence of any other sports programming, but I knew this was going to be a major event. And so I went to the NBA and I said, okay, you guys own this footage. You still have it. Yep. Still in the vault. Yep. It's digitized. It's logged. It's ready to go. I said, if I can get Michael to say yes to participate, are you guys good to go? And they're like, yes, before I even finished the sentence. Like, they spend millions of dollars on this. They're desperate to get it out. And so I started working with Esty Portnoy and Curtis Polk, who are Michael's 2 gatekeepers. That was about a 5-month courtship. I started in February 2016 at the All-Star game in Toronto, the coldest 3 days I've ever spent in my life, minus 50 wind chill. And Michael came by the table and shook my hand, and they said, yeah, we're working on something with Mike, you know, and he was like, great. I'll see you down the road. And they worked with me till they thought I was ready to present to Michael. I had a lookbook, and we worked on the pictures and the words and the whole chronology and all. They were great, I have to say. They that's their life. I mean, that's their guy. She's kind of the head of marketing. Curtis is a lawyer who helps him run the team, and they know him so well. And when they finally, as they called me up and they said, okay, he's captive. What does that mean? Well, the draft was going to be the next day. Michael's the owner of the Charlotte Hornets. They're going to have to draft. He can't leave. They said he's desperate to play golf. He's trying to trade the draft choice, but it looks like he's going to have to be here. So get on a red eye and hurry up and come, and we'll do a meeting the next day. So I booked a flight from LA to Charlotte. I remember my wife saying, where are you going? Going on a red eye to Charlotte. What for? Meeting Michael Jordan. Wow, what time's the meeting? Well, I don't actually have a meeting. Wait, you're going across the country to have a meeting? You don't have a time for the meeting? It's Michael Jordan. Yes, I am. I'm doing it. I wake up, I put on ESPN, got a few hours of sleep in the hotel in Charlotte, and I turn on the TV, and there's LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers parading through Cleveland, having just come back from that 3-1 deficit against the Warriors and won the championship. So I'm thinking, like, how weirdly cosmic is this on the day that I'm going to hopefully convince Michael Jordan to tell his story? There's LeBron James. Some people are saying whatever they're saying. I'm not saying it, by the way. As far as I'm concerned, there's one GOAT, and it's Michael. But anyway, it just felt like something's going on here. The universe is saying this is where you should be. And they finally ushered me into his office. And it was, you know, like peeking behind the curtain to finally see the wizard after all this time. And I handed him my lookbook, all this thing that we had been preparing for 4 months. And this was a moment. There were a lot of moments. This was one of them. He goes, whoa, turns to the first page and he goes, whoa, that's a lot of words. Hold on, let me get my reading glasses. Like, wait a minute, Michael Jordan needs reading glasses? Wait a minute, he's Superman. That's not possible. This must be Clark Kent. But he was very patient. He was, one of the genius things about Michael, which came out in the series, is the mental aspect. Like, he is so, wherever he is, whatever he's doing, whoever he's with, he is 100% there. Once he started reading that and talking to me, I felt like I was the only person in the world. So he reads this letter that I had written because I didn't know if I was actually going to ever be able to present to him. So I wrote him a letter. Dear Michael, every day I walk into my office, several young producers come in wearing your shoes. They've never seen you play. It's time. So it was kind of a legacy play. He smiled, he kind of nodded. Curtis and Esty are on either side, but I can't even see them. They're behind me. And I just kind of keep going, and we keep leafing through pages, and he's commenting on things, and he's super attentive, and it feels like it's going really good. Now, this is the version of the story I like to tell to Philly audiences. It happens to be true. I don't know if it means as much to a non-Philly audience, but it's going really well. The one thing I know about pitch meetings from 40 plus years of doing this is you never have any idea. The best meetings where you feel like everybody's leaning in and there's such receptivity ends up in nothing. And the ones where they don't even seem to be paying attention, they call the next day and say, we love it and we'll buy it. So I don't know. I'm just like, let's keep turning the page. Let's keep going. Let's keep talking. We're talking about the finals. And I asked him who he was rooting for. And he said, oh, well, of course I'm rooting for the Warriors because, you know, Steve Kerr's my boy and they were teammates for so long. And so we finally get to the last page, and conventionally the production company credits are on the last page. You put pictures of the posters of some of the films you've done. So he's going around the square and he starts at the bottom. There's little Varsity Blues and Hank Aaron and Radio and Dreamer and Zookeeper's Wife and Kareem. And at the very bottom right is Iverson. We did a documentary about Allen Iverson. Now, if you're a Philly fan, a Sixer fan, you remember the crossover where Allen crossed over Michael and Michael buckled and went down and Allen scored on him. And it was like, you know, there wasn't really viral in the mid 90s, but it went whatever viral was 25 years ago. And it was kind of an embarrassment. And so I'm thinking, I'm so close. It's been going so well. And now he sees this Iverson thing and I'm dead. It's all over. So he goes, you did that? And I'm like, yeah, can we talk about something else? And he goes, really? And I said, yeah. And he gets up out of his chair and he walks from behind his desk and comes over to me and says, watched it 3 times, made me cry. Love that little guy. puts his hand out and says, let's do it. Was it because of Alan? Probably not, but I'm just saying that's sealed the deal. And he was, now contrary to rumors, because everything that has its moment has to have its backlash. So after the ratings were great and the critical acclaim was great, and it was really sort of a dream journey, then all of a sudden people started saying, oh, it was all canned and it was Michael Jordan and he dictated the content. Not true. Complete lies. Michael could not have been a more willing and collaborative participant. There was never a question he dodged or didn't want to answer. There was never a piece of footage that he asked us to remove or shorten or change. He watched them all, and he had comments. He really loved all the stuff about the gambling and all the stuff about Republicans buy shoes too. He really felt like, okay, I'm doing this. It's to some extent a legacy play. It's going to be there forever. It goes from ESPN to Netflix, and now it's there forever. And I think he just wanted all of it to be out on the table. He was so, if you watch the show, you could see how emotional he got and how forthcoming he was. And he started to cry at the end of episode 7. There's that moment where Jason Hare, the director, who deserves all the credit in the world, who's a spectacular storyteller, it was the moment where he asked him about the damage done to his personal relationships because of how intense he was. Like, he famously punched Steve Kerr in the eye, and a lot of his teammates called him assholes and said how impossible he was to deal with. And he picked on Scotty Burrell, and he basically started to cry and remembered, the human cost of that intensity. And he just said, look, I never asked any of my teammates to do anything that I wouldn't fucking do myself. And, all I wanted to do was win. And he goes, break, because he was getting really emotional and he knew he was going to break down. So the only thing he ever did was actually suggest some things that we forgot. And he said, oh, there was that game after I came back, against Indiana, and you might want to put that in. And, but he didn't check and he didn't care. So I just have to say, don't believe everything you hear or read. It was really a dream journey to be with him. And I think we're really proud of having earned his confidence and his faith and his trust, and really being able to tell the authentic story.
Amazing, right? Just an amazing, and you've heard it here. Yet another amazing story. Michael, I guess the thing I would want to ask you is, how all the athletes now have their own production company. Now maybe you can be Michael's.
I don't think so. However, he is doing a show with Bubba Wallace and the NASCAR team that he bought, which is really cool. We're not going to be involved. Okay. He's not, he doesn't really want to do that. You're right, Donna. There's LeBron, there was Kobe, there's Steph Curry, there's James Harden. There's so many of them, but that's not his thing. He likes running the team. He likes playing golf. He likes fishing. He's got 2 little kids now, and big kids, and he's got a busy life. He really does. I think he's having a good time. He built a golf course, as I know you know. Yeah. Have you played it, Donna?
I haven't. I think MG might have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be great. I hear it's really great.
Yeah. It's good.
But what has happened is that everybody wants their last dance. We have a lot of incoming, hey, I want my last dance. Well, maybe it won't be 10 episodes. Maybe it'll be 6 or 8 or whatever. We have a couple up our sleeve that, are too early to talk about, but hopefully in the very near future, we'll announce a couple of, it's really fun to really dig in. And like I said earlier, to try to tell the stories that people don't know yet, demystifies, demythologize, really dig beneath the surface. But also, Donna, I can't remember what you said with all the credits and stuff. I have to say that although we are called Mandalay Sports Media, some of the things I'm proudest of and most passionate about are either sports that's just a deep background or no sports at all. Like Zookeeper's Wife, obviously there was no sports. And we just got back from shooting a documentary called Vote Like You've Never Voted Before, which was a line that we took from John Lewis. And we were in 5 battleground states. We kind of picked pretty well. We had Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Turned out to be 4 pretty pivotal states. Texas stayed red, but we got some great stuff down there from Mark Cuban and Coach Carlisle. And what we wanted to do was chronicle the Get Out the Vote effort, engineered by the partnership between Adam Silver, the NBA, the teams and the players. So 23 of the 30 NBA teams donated their facility to be used as a polling place. And this is an amazing stat. We were with Chris Paul yesterday, who's the head of the, earthquake again. Don, I'm pathetic. What are you going to do? So Chris said something like 22% of the NBA players were registered to vote at the beginning of the bubble. And by the time voting day came, he said something between 95 and 97% voted. But how's this for crazy? So we're in Philly, and somebody asked Julius Erving, Dr. J, so Julius, can you remember the first time you voted? And he goes, yeah, yesterday. Like, what? It's really amazing. And then you try to unpack that. It was really a great discovery for me. So
Julius said that and meant it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that wasn't a joke. And so then, well, how come? Well, you grow up in the South. There's a lot of voter suppression, which still exists today, which we tried to document. There's a lot of stuff going on in Georgia people were talking about. I think it's a combination of voter suppression and just feeling disenfranchised, and that's what's so great about this movement is it's just like feeling like you're participating in the democracy and actually getting the next generation. Getting off. Oh, here he comes. To feel like they need to be a part. I mean, like the end goal of this thing is to see if Election Day can become a national holiday. And, everybody gives their employees off, and everybody realizes that's just what we do.
That's amazing.
Well, Don, I'll take the next one here. Michael, I need to tell you just a quick personal story. I had the privilege of being the president of the Sun League the year that Michael Jordan came into Birmingham.
Wow.
It was one of the most incredible, I was first-year president. It was the most incredible experiences. And on the night of the last dance that you did the minor league baseball segment, I have to tell you, all of the folks who were in the South and in Birmingham and elsewhere, we were on a joint communication together, just reliving that moment. So thank you for that. It was truly incredible.
I love that section because I'm a baseball geek, and I love talking to Tito. I love seeing the crowds. I love hearing people talk about how much he developed and how, had he played another year, he might have actually been good enough to make it to the majors. That's just skepticism. But did you see him improve over the course of the year?
Yeah, well, I think you did. I mean, you saw his athleticism from the very beginning. Defensively, he was, a very good player. But I think this was brought out in your segment. He actually, in the first month of the season, was at the top of the league in terms of batting average. Yeah. And then of course they decided, well, maybe he can't hit a curveball, and I think that was his downfall. But I want to keep it on baseball just for a second, because the other great personality for a lot of people, I know Kenny's on it, so he's going to appreciate it, is Hank Aaron, and what you did with Hank. So tell us how you got involved in that, and just kind of what kind of person is he, and how did he work with you on all of this?
I couldn't love Hank Aaron anymore. I mean, he feels to me like my Uncle Hank. This is early Tollin Robbins. Ryan Robbins and I, we basically had two tracks. We were doing a lot of youth-oriented programming. So we did Keenan and Kel, and we did Amanda Bynes' show, and we did a show called All That, which was basically a Saturday Night Live for kids. It was super fun. And then we had our sports thing going, and it was approaching the 20th anniversary. That's how long ago it was. Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's record with 714 homers in 1974, and it was getting to be 1994, and it was the 20th anniversary, and we said, let's do the show for the 20th anniversary. As everything in our business, it proceeds at glacial speed, and it took 2 years, and by the time it came out, it was like late 95, and it was the same sort of deal where I had to fly down to Atlanta and convince him to let us tell his story. And we sent a bunch of films to him. I sent Let Me Be Brave to him, Don. This was a film we did when we climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and he loved it. And he loved the fact that it was dealing with the Special Olympics. And he basically looked me in the eye and said, I don't want to make a film about home runs and RBIs and batting average. I said, okay. He said, this has to be about a lot more than that. I'm proudest about the fact that baseball and the Braves moving from Milwaukee to Atlanta played a really significant role in the civil rights movement. And like, I'm in. That's what I want to do. The broader the canvas, the more exciting the project is. And so when the film, when we start shooting, all of a sudden we're interviewing Jimmy Carter and John Lewis and Maynard Jackson and Julian Bond. And Jimmy Carter actually said to me, if not for Hank Aaron coming with an integrated team to Atlanta in the 60s, Jimmy Carter, would have never been taken seriously as a presidential candidate by the United States, because they never would have considered somebody coming out of Plains, Georgia as a national candidate. So I got to know him and his wife, Billy, and every 5 years for his milestone birthdays, they throw these huge fundraisers, and we started a foundation named after the film, which was called Chasing the Dream. And it's something I'm just so proud of. I mean, Bud Selig gave us a $5 million endowment. I think we've raised something like $20 million. And again, Hank wanted the reach to go way beyond sports. So we give scholarships to kids to help them chase their own dreams. And it's as likely to be dance or art or music as it is baseball, basketball, or football. And he's got kids and grandkids and nephews and nieces, and he's all about education. And he is aged like the finest wine. He's gracious and he's grateful and he's decent and he's just a lovely, lovely man. And I consider it one of the great joys and privileges of my life to know him.
And now, like, we all want to know him more. But you know what? Next time we're going to invite you back, and we're going to ask you to invite 2 or 3 of your favorite people. So I think you should bring Uncle Hank.
Okay, that'd be fun.
I know, it would really be fun. We've pitched Sandy Koufax. Annie has talked to Sandy for us, so you can bring him because we'd be another baseball guy. And then
so wait, let me stop there because it's a Jewish audience, and I'm a Jewish guest, and Sandy's a Jewish pitcher, and so Sandy Koufax was the big get for me for all those reasons, right?
Yes.
And I knew how reclusive he was, and he doesn't like to travel, and like, there's no way I'm going to get him. I got to get him. So I conspired with Hank's assistant. I wrote a note from Hank to Sandy. I wrote it. She typed it on Hank Aaron's stationery and sent it, and then signed it for Hank. He knew about it. He was all in cahoots, and sent it to Sandy, from Hank to Sandy. And Sandy said, I'd be delighted to do the interview, Hank. Just tell me where to come. And I'm like, tell me where to go. And he flew on his own dime from his home in North Carolina to Atlanta, where I was shooting the film. Came to where I was, set up, couldn't have been more patient, spent, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours with me. And the only question he didn't answer, I said to him, Henry and the black ball players of that era who came after Jackie Robinson, still were suffering a lot of abuse and still had, segregated hotels and segregated restaurants. And I just wonder, as a Jewish ball player, whether you could relate a little more closely to what they were experiencing. He said, very respectfully, I'd really rather not answer that question. Never knew why, couldn't really probe, had to be respectful. But that maybe when I bring him back, we'll take another crack at it.
Listen, I'm conspiring with Annie Drysdale. So,
Great.
right?
Great. That's a good call.
Maybe we can make it happen. That would be a big.
He's so great. He's such a class act, really.
Now listen, Stephen Graber he's kind of like, he knows what's going on the street. And he says there's a rumor about you doing some documentary with a wrestler. Is that true?
No. Jason Hare, the director of The Last Dance, is involved in one.
Okay.
Maybe
part of the old Last Dance team, but not you per se.
That's okay.
Okay. Listen, you're telling Jewish stories. I mean, Arnie, we should ask him about his Richie Allen story, right? Wasn't that your famous Jewish story?
Oh, does anybody know? Okay, how many people on this Zoom know who Richie Allen is? Or Dick Allen, baseball player? Okay. Well, he was my boyhood hero, and probably the greatest moment I've had during the pandemic, which is how many months now? 8, 9, going on 9. The owner of the Phillies, John Middleton, who succeeded my great friend Dave Montgomery, finally drank the Kool-Aid that I'd been dispensing for years, that the Phillies should retire Richie Allen's number 15. First Black player in the team's history, and truly one of the all-time greats, who had to suffer the very polarized 60s in Philadelphia when Frank Rizzo was the police chief. And it was really like a fascist regime. And it was a racist town, and it's getting much better. But, you know, as a kid, and Chuck Brodsky's on the Zoom, Chuck is a great folk singer, and Chuck wrote a great song called Letters in the Dirt. I recommend it. I'm sure you can find it online, or maybe Chuck, what's the best way to get the song?
I think Chuck should sing it for us. Chuck?
That would be cool. It's called Letters in the Dirt because as he was leaving in his last season, Richie Allen started scribbling words in the infield dirt around first base. And he wrote boo because that's the word he heard all the time. And he wrote mom because that was the only person who could tell him what to do. And he wrote Coke because he was going to hit the ball over the Coca-Cola sign in left field. Anyway, it's a love letter from Chuck to Richie, and I've been making a film for 20 years. And so I got asked by John Middleton, the owner of the Phillies, to be a part of the ceremony where we retired Dick Allen's jersey this summer. And I told the story about when I first met him. The short version is I finally got to sit down with him, and I wasn't considered part of the media. And he just was talking to me as a person. And you're from Philly, where are you from? Where'd you go to school? What, you know, went through the whole history. And then finally he looked at me and he went, so you Jewish? And I'm like, again, it's like the Allen Iverson moment. It's like, it's going so well. Like, who knows what's, you know, what he's going to say. I'm like, yeah. And he looks at me again. He hands me a beer and he says, well, all right, God's chosen people. You know what it's like to be oppressed. Have another beer, my brother. Beautiful. Beautiful.
That's pretty awesome. That's awesome, Michael. But it's 8:55. We got a couple more minutes. Arnie, I have a couple of questions here.
No, go on, Donna. Why don't you, just before Michael leaves, Michael, beyond your incredible professional work, I was also really impressed by the philanthropy you're doing. And I know you got 3 or 4 major organizations and projects, and some you founded and some you support. Just so before we leave tonight, I want you to, you know, tell the audience a little bit about what you're doing in that area.
That would be great. That would be great. Let me say this. I'm going to say this. Michael's a father of 2 kids, Georgia and Lucas. Now, Lucas is a golfer. How's Lucas's game these days?
I would say it's somewhat dormant, Donna.
Well, he went to,
yeah, he went to Knox College, which is a D3 school, and he played golf there for a year. Not really an academic kid. Came home, hits the ball. You know the story better than I do. He hits the ball better than he scores. He's got a beautiful swing, which he really works on. He really understands the intricacies. He's always at the range looking at, like, you know, Justin Thomas or Jordan Spieth or some of these instructional videos. But on the course, you know, he gets bored or he gets distracted.
No, Michael, but here's the thing. 2022, we're going to be looking for golfers to play in the Maccabi games in Israel. Wow. I think Lucas could get really motivated. He would have a real goal.
Wow, what a great idea, Donna.
You could, it would be awesome. You and I then we can climb Mount Kilimanjaro on the way.
I like it.
I think then you can come whether you have your camera and your writing pad or not, whatever. But this could be a father-son story, which is, by the way, Maccabi is a big family story.
That's so great. Roughly how good does he have to be? What do you think?
Do we have the golf chairman on this thing? Oh yeah, Bruce. How good does he have to be? He has to get better than he is, right, Bruce? Bruce has chaired golf for us many times. Bruce, you're allowed to talk. You can take off your mute. There you
go. Tell me again, what's your handicap?
No, it's not me, it's my son. But like, what should he be to have a shot? Like,
the Open guys, we're gonna have the qualifier this coming summer at PGA National down in Palm Beach Gardens.
Yeah.
And my guess that depending on how hard they set up the course, it'll be a 54-hole tournament, and the average score will be 78. Will be the top. Will be the worst. So if you average 78 for 3 rounds, you'll probably make the team.
That's right about where he is. That's
all right, Michael.
goal.
We got a goal here. We got a goal here. This is going to be so good for Lucas's focus, and we want you to come with us. So I think this would be really great. Don't you think, everybody? Right? And then we can add some international aspect to this. Who wrote this? Shane. We'll have the first team from the UAE in Israel.
Nice.
Now we have like, oh my God, what's happening here? And you'll be on.
So great.
Hey,
I love it.
Donna.
What?
Donna.
What?
Donna, can you hear me?
I can. Who are you? Where are you?
Harry Swimmer.
Harry! I love
right.
you, Harry. Go ahead. What do you got?
Real fast, babe. Mike, I just want to tell you that I'm looking at you and I'm seeing your father. His father was my very closest friend. And June 4th, I know how old he would have been because I just turned that age. And please give my best to your family, to Patsy and Steve, who I know. I went to Toronto and watched Steve play tennis with your father many years ago for the JCC things. But and if you ever come to Charlotte again, you better be in touch with me.
That's a deal.
Okay.
Good to great to hear your voice. Great to see you. Thanks, Harry.
Yeah, no, not many of all of my friends left. So.
Wow. No,
Harry.
So
we love you, Harry. I'm so glad.
It's so great. It's sort of a legendary name, Donna. Harry Swimmer.
Harry Swimmer's here. It's like the best. Awesome.
Well, for your father, I'm telling you, I'm very proud of you, Mike.
Thank you so much. It really warms my heart to know you're there, man. Really, really glad to see you. Thanks for being there.
And so that's what the Maccabi is all about, Michael. And somebody's saying your brother plays tennis. So your brother can come too. So Uncle Steven, Lucas.
Wow. What a dream. This is awesome. Lucas coming for dinner tomorrow night.
Our intention. I know how you work. We're setting our intention. And in closing, by the way, I'm going to pitch you one more story. And it has nothing to do with this. But Sam Jones is 87 years old. I know you have a heart spot. Former Celtic, won 9 championships. He lives here. He is the most amazing human, and nobody's told his story. You can have it. I'll produce it. You'll produce it. I'll executive produce. It's perfect.
Do you know how much misery Sam Jones caused me in my childhood? Donna, Sam Jones, Casey Jones, John Havlicek, Tommy Heinsohn, Bill Russell, Bailey Howe, Larry Siegfried. It's a tough one for me. I'm still.
No. You're going to fall in love with him because he's the most amazing human. And no one's told his story, and his story needs to be told. There's nobody from his generation, really. Anyway, that's my final pitch. Anybody else? Final questions here. We're getting the Tollin clan in 2022. We're very excited about that.
That's so great.
Okay, final question. Who was this from? Shifty. This was a good one. Was it from Shifty or Kenny Silverbird? Oh, it's Kenny, I think. He wanted to know your favorite film location and all the work you did.
New Zealand's my favorite place on the planet. So New Zealand is where I went to follow these 2. What a great way to end this thing. 2 Israeli yachtsmen. In 1984, the LA Games, they were going to enter the 470-meter class, Shimshon Brockman and Eitan Friedlander. And I won a tennis tournament, which got me 2 free tickets anywhere in the world. And I flew to New Zealand because they were going to be in a race there. And I met them there and I befriended them and it was great. And we're going to meet and I'm going to get credentials to come to LA, and the regatta is going to be in Long Beach. And they were the greatest guys in the world. And Israel had won 0 medals in the Olympics by then. And this was going to be groundbreaking. And it was a multi-day event. And the first day they took a wrong turn and read the wind wrong. And they were in like 13th place. They kind of caught up, but they couldn't finish higher than 5th. So they didn't win a medal. As we often say, some of the best films are the ones we don't get to make, but a great trip. Love New Zealand.
Wow, that is a great way to end. So I want to thank everybody. Oh, wait, Harry, listen. If Harry wants to talk, we listen. Harry, what do you need, babe?
No, I was delighted to be here and so great to see you, Donna. It's been a while. And hope MG is doing good. And Mike, don't forget, Charlotte is where I am.
Gotcha. Now I know.
And everybody should know, if you go to Charlotte, you got to go see Harry. He's got the most amazing place, and he's just a wonderful man, and he's truly a father of Maccabi USA. So we're always appreciative to him for that. Yeah. Everybody, thank you for tonight. It's great. Michael, what a storyteller you are. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Guys, all transfixed. It was fantastic.
So much fun.
Marty always has some good closing comments here.
No, I just close up. Michael, thank you so much. What a great evening. I mean, great stories.
You guys. An
incredible career. So thank you for that. And Donna, we'll be back at it in a couple of weeks. And this is so much fun every other twice a month, and to be able to bring on prominent, Jewish sports representatives and leaders. It's great. So look forward to joining in a couple of weeks.
I think we're going to have Michael be our booker. Michael, you need to be our booker.
I'll be happy to. I got some ideas for you. Got some good ideas.
All right, everybody, have a great night. Be well, be healthy, be safe, take care.
Bye, everyone.